Hilchos Yom HaKippurim, beginning Perek Dalet, Halacha Aleph, Perek Revi. We're going to have to divide up the halacha into a few sections. There's only two halachas in Perek Revi. It's the order of the service on Yom Kippur. So let's begin. Seder Kol HaMa'asim B'Shavim Zeh. Kachu. The order, as the Rambam said earlier, the order. If you don't do it in the order, it impedes the accomplishment of having it fulfilled. Is in the following order: Kechatzois halaylo, about midnight. Mafisin letrumas hadeshin. They make a lottery to decide who's going to take off from the mizbeach the leftover ashes. Now we'll go to the Peirush, because according to the Rambam, it's not the Kohen Gadol who does so, even though there are others who are of the opinion that the Kohen Gadol is the one who has to do that as well. Doesn't mean all the ashes. It means a certain symbolic amount of ashes which are placed in the Azorah. And they prepare a new pile of wood on the Mizbeach. And they take out all the old ashes, as they do every day, and the order that we explained in Tmidim Musafim, until the time arrives at the morning star for the slaughtering of the first korban of the day, which is the korban tamid. As we see, and all of these seem to be done by an individual kohen, a private, regular kohen, as opposed to the Kohen Gadol. The Rambam, according to the Rambam, we'll see there are two lots today, rather than four as usual. The first one doesn't mention the Kohen Gadol. Thus we see that the Rambam is of the opinion that the Kohen Gadol, you need not do it, but even a regular kohen may do so, and that's why they had a lottery to see which of the regular kahana would do it. The reason that they used to take off the deshen, the old ash, at midnight and not right before the morning star as usual throughout the year, it's brought in the Gemara Yuma 20b, because of the weakness of the Kohen Gadol, because everything is dependent upon him. He has to get up earlier. So it would seem in the Gemara that Trumas Hadoshin was actually with the Kohen Gadol. That's why most Rishonim, the early commentaries, add that this is obligated to the Kohen Gadol. The Rambam is of the opinion that Trumas Hadoshin is done even by a regular Kohen. The Riva and Tosfos is also that opinion, and therefore he has a text in the Gemara, Shulchul the Kohen, that before the Kohen Gadol, the regular Kohen will become tired, and he doesn't have the text of Kohen Gadol. To read there as well, says that the Trumas Hadesh and the removal of the obligatory removal of ash can be done by a regular Kohen, even though the Gemara seems to have a text Kohen Gadol. It means that because the Kohen Gadol should find everything ready at the morning star before he will become hungry and weak. The Rambam, he explains that whoever merited all year in Trumas Hadeshin, he would also do, in other words, all year, the same person, the same kohen who did the Trumas Hadeshin, not only did he take off the ashes, but he would prepare the Shnei Gizrei Eitzim, the two batches of wood which had to be put and prepared on the Mizbeach. And the Pri Chodesh says it could be on Yom Kippur. They would divide it up into three different Kahanim to add to the spectacle of the day, or the beauty of the day, because of the love of the work. And that the one who merited to take off the deshen would take off the deshen. Those that stood to his right the first one would range the Mizbeach should be ready for the new logs, and the next one would put on the 2 measures of wood. The Rambam continues, when the Kohen Gadol comes to slaughter the Tomid, the first offering of the day, he would have to wear garments of priestly garments, and since he didn't do the avodah of Tumas Hadeshin, he was still in his own private garments, and they would therefore put up a curtain of flax, linen, to be modest between the Kohen Gadol and the people when he got to the mikveh. Why was it made out of linen? To know that the work of the day, the service was done especially by the Kohen Gadol in white linen. He would remove his weekday garments, and then he would go immerse himself, and he would wear the golden garments. Now here's the first time that he washes his hand, the first time he goes to the mikveh. As we learned earlier in Peri Beis Halacha Beis, every time he changed his garments to the garments that he was going to do the avodah, he had to go to the mikveh. And he slaughters in the tomid the majority of 2 of the vessels, only the majority. Umaniach acher ligma shchito. Then he would let someone else conclude the slaughtering, because that's enough to make the slaughtering, because he also is required to receive the dam. Umekabel adam, he has to receive the blood. Zorkoin, and he would spray the blood of the korban tomid of the morning, kimitzvos al mizbeach kimitzvos, on the mizbeach as is commanded. After that, nichnas lahechol, he would go into the Beis Hamikdash. He would bring the incense of the morning, which is not the inner Kodesh HaKadoshim, but this is the regular incense which was done twice a day. And he would light the 5 candles, and then another 2. Teiz and Yuma points out that in Yom HaKippurim he would only light 2 of the last candles. Prima Chodesh infers that according to the Rambam, he has to do all of the candles, and no one else can do the other candles. Maktir Evori Atomid, and he brings up on the Mizbeach the parts of the Tomid, Vehachavitin, and also the flour offerings of the Kohen Gadol that he had to give every day, Vanesochin, and the wine that comes with the Korban Tomid, just like the order that the Rambam has enumerated elsewhere. What is the order of how you bring the Korban Tomid? After the Tomid, he would offer up the par, which is the bull of Musaf, and the 7 sheep of the Musaf of the day, which are found in Parashas Pinchas. Kazim Mishnah brings them out the disagreement of Tanoim in the Mishnah in Yuma 70a. When do you bring the Musafim? Whether you do it right away after the Tomid. The Rambam is like Rabbi Kiva. You bring it immediately in the morning, even before any of the service that's done with the white garments. Now, the Tmidim, Musafim, he does in gold garments, and this is the first time that he wears garments of gold that day. Then he goes again and washes his hands before he changes to the white garments, and before he goes to the mikveh even. He takes off the golden garments, he immerses himself in the mikveh. Then the Lovish Big Day Lovon, he puts on the special white garments of Yom Kippur that the Kohen Gadol wears, and he washes his hands again. The Mishnah Melech questions, why don't they say here again that they put up a curtain of modesty, like he mentioned by the first one. In the Mishnah, it mentions it And he adds, obviously every tefillah they did so, and therefore there's no need to mention it again, because one is not permitted to see his Rebbe or any great person when he's unclothed. But why doesn't he mention that the halacha is that the satin should be of linen? Now, Rav Kahana, that mentions that he put up a linen one to remind the Kohen Gadol that it's because of he's going to wear linen garments that day. He's talking about the second immersion that wasn't in Kodesh, not the first one. The Rambam mentions it here by the first one, not by the second one. And Taisus questions, why didn't he say that of Kahana on the first immersion when he takes off the weekday garments and he puts on the golden garments? And he answers that the second one has a greater thought behind it. You shouldn't say that once they did it already, once they had separate, they put up the curtain, then he doesn't have to be reminded again. So he tells us that in the second immersion he needs white garments. Now the Gemara goes back to the question: why didn't the Rambam answer that the second tefillah, the second immersion should be in linen? And the Mishnah Melech remains with the question. The Mishnah Melech also points out that Taisus says that they only did it by the first two immersions, not all of them. But the Rambam, since he doesn't mention it again, would seem to be assuming that he did it by all the tefillahs, because for sure they did it by the second one when he changed to white garments. And therefore, the Rambam, according to his usual rule, would not repeat what he has already stated. Now, he comes to the bull, which has to be done with the white garments. Remember, we learned it earlier, the bull was standing between the building of the Beis HaMikdash to the Mizbeach. As the Mishnah writes, that according to the Rambam, the entire Mizbeach was to the south. In other words, if you divide up the entire front of the Beis HaMikdash, and the midpoint is where the south ends and the north begins, he was all beyond to the south. And therefore, there was no need to put the par between him and the Mizbeach, because technically the par should be facing the Mizbeach. According to the Rambam, there is nothing between the Mizbeach and the par, only bein ha'ulam l'mizbeach, means here the airspace to the mizbeach, because the mizbeach would be further down. The Lechem Mishnah points out that even though the Rambam is of the opinion that the majority of the mizbeach was in the south, but there was a little bit of the mizbeach that stood even in the north, and therefore, when they put the par, they couldn't place it with its face to the mizbeach and its rear to the mizbeach. In fact, it was face to the building, and its rear to the mizbeach, and therefore they had to place it sideways, and then they just turned its head so that its face alone was pointing in the direction of the Beis HaMikdash. His head was actually in the direction of south, and his rear end was to the north, and his face was to the west. Why didn't they do it between east and west? We said because maybe it'll relieve itself, and it's not proper to have that happen in front of the Mizbeach. The Kohen Gadol stands in the east, and he's facing the west. In other words, he's sitting on the eastern side of the animal, and but he's facing north because he's facing the animal, and he says confession. This has to be done with all of his strength, with two hands on the head of the animal, between its horns. And he says confession. This is what he said in his language of confession. Ona Hashem, Please Hashem, Chotosi I sinned, Avisi I transgressed, Poshati I rebelled, Levonecha, Levonecha before you, Ani Ubesi, I and my family. Here he only talks about his family, not the Kahanim. And then he says, Ona Hashem, please Hashem, Kapino, forgive, L'chatoim, for my transgressions, for my sins, Ula'avonis, my transgressions, L'pshoim, my rebelliousness, Shechotosi, that I sinned, V'shavisi, that I transgressed, V'shepashati, that I rebelled, L'fonecho, before you, Ani, I, Ubesi, and my family, Kakoz b'Torah Moshe Avdecho, Lema, as it says in the Torah of Moshe, your servant saying, Ki vayim hazeh yichapa aleichem, for on this day shall be atoned for you, l'taya eschem, to heal you, mikol chayteseichem levnei Hashem titoru, from all of your sins, before Hashem shall you be cleansed, purified. This is the way the Rambam paskins the Seder Havidui, that the order is first chatos, which is not willful, avisi, which is willful, and boshati, which is rebellious. Afterwards, then, after he did tshuva, magril, al shnei asirim, he then goes to the box which has the two lots, and he decides which one, the lots decide which one of the two, either the one to the right or one to the left of him, is the one that's going to be the soil Hashem, which is the soil Azozel, the koisha, and he would tie loshen shel zoheres b'roish hamishtaleach. He would tie a red tongue of wool on the head of the goat, which is going to be sent away. Uma'amidoi, and he would place it keneged beishluchoi, near the door where he's going to be sent out. V'lanishchat, and the one that's going to be slaughtered for its blood, keneged beishchitosoi, near the place where it's going to be slaughtered, as we explained in Perek Gimel Halacha Daled. It means one was in the east, and one was next to the Beis Hamikdash, the building. And the question is also, when it says Keneged Beis Shchitos, it doesn't mean the neck, or does it mean the place? Now he comes back to his bull, which is still standing there. And he puts two hands on his head again, and he confesses, Vidui Sheni. This is the second confession. And this is what he says: Ona Hashem, please Hashem, Chotosi, I sinned, Ovisi, I transgressed, Poshati, I rebelled, Lefonecha, before you, Ani, I, Ubesi, and my family, Ubnei Aaron Am Kedoshecha, and the children of Aaron, your holy people. Here he adds the Kahanim. And again he prays, Ona Hashem, please Hashem, Kapeno, forgive, L'chatoim, for sins, L'avonos, for transgressions, L'pshoim, for rebelliousness, Shechotosi, that I sinned, Shavisi, and that I transgressed, Shapashati, I rebelled upon before you, Ani, myself, Ubesi, my household, B'nei Aaron, Am Kedoshecha, and B'nei Aaron, your holy nation, Kakoz b'Torah Moshe Avdecha, as it's written in the Torah of Moshe Avdecha, Ki v'yim hazeh, and he says the whole posuk, Ki v'yim hazeh yichaper aleichem, l'taya eschem, mikol chatoseichem levnei Hashem titoru. And after that, Shochet is apar. He slaughters the bull, Mikabel is Domei, he receives its blood. Shochet is apar, Mikabel is Domei. He slaughters the par and he receives the blood. Here the Rambam doesn't mention that another Kohen finishes the Shchita. The Pri Chodesh and the Siach Yitzchok explain there's no reason to point it out, because you knew that this Korban has to receive in the Klishoris. And since they knew that the Kohen Gadol is Mekabel Adam, so certainly somebody else has to do it. By Tomen, they made a mistake. He gives to somebody who will make sure that it will not coagulate, it will not be able to be sprayed.